well, welcome once again to Cambridge. Outside, as you can see, it's a beautiful sunny spring day here. This spring has been quite extraordinary. We've hardly had any rain. It's been consistently really sunny. So in here, all the orchids are really enjoying the weather. So they're beginning to grow again after what seemed like a very long winter. But the other interesting thing is that last year was completely different. The spring was incredibly wet, very dull. In fact, the whole summer stayed quite dull. In this greenhouse, the weather the previous year is reflected in the way that a lot of the orchids have grown. So, for example, up there's a Biphoneria harrisoniana alba, and it only has, let's just get it down. This has gone over. It's got 1, 2, well, it did have 3 flowers. Normally it has much more than that. And then my beautiful, sweetly, well, not so much sweetly, but interestingly and quite strongly scented Epidendrum stamfordianum. This only has 1 flower spike, whereas last year it had 2. But, interestingly, one of my most reliable, and I think probably one of the best performing orchids I've got. It's been on this cork mount for years. If you want to view a bit more about it, I did actually cover this in more depth quite a while back, so I'll put the reference on screen. But this is looking absolutely fantastic, and that's in a way what made me decide to do the filming today. Absolutely at its peak. Look at that. And it's beginning to grow round sort of underneath. They don't last very long, maybe a week or 10 days, and they all tend to come out at once. But when they do, they really an arresting display of flowers. And then the other Dendrobium, of which there's a huge number of Dendrobiums. This is Dendrobium farmeri, which is a really elegant species, I think. It's classified as sort of medium growing, but so far this has been fairly petite in the way that it's grown. And the flowers last maybe 2 weeks. There is no scent that I can detect, but very beautiful, delicate flowers, and I love the way that they hang down. If you look on the internet, there are some forms of this which have much more pink flowers, quite a vibrant pink, but I like this more typical, very delicate colouring. And this is possibly one of the most famous Dendrobiums, which so far I don't do quite so well with. This is Dendrobium Victoria reginae, which has these incredibly beautifully blue or sort of purpley blue flowers. And I'm quite lucky with this one because there are quite a lot of different forms, and some people, when they buy them and they eventually flower, they're not nearly such a vibrant, deep colouring as this. So I was quite fortunate. This came originally from Ackern Orchids in Belgium, very good orchid nursery. But oh yes, what I wanted to say was, I read somewhere that they want to be cool and moist with quite a lot of watering. And I did have problems with the new stems rotting off. So I'm being much more careful with the watering now and not sort of splashing too much water around unless it's exceptionally hot and dry. And this is, they tend to go, in fact you can see, if I come closer, you can see this one here, this actually rotted off, and it's actually forced the stem that was growing to branch out and start growing again. That's obviously not really what you want. They should grow upright and then fall down in one go. So I'm being very careful with this one these days. But if you put the 2 colours together, look at that, that's a really impressive combination of colours. The other really impressive orchid that I've got out at the moment is this Vanda javieri var barnesii. which is another of my really reliable orchids. It took to the growing conditions in this greenhouse really well, right from the start, has grown beautifully, no real problems with it. It's fairly one of the cooler growing Vandas, and every year, at least for the last few years, it has had 2 flower spikes with these really beautiful, pristine, white, not scented flowers, but they last a couple of months like many Vandas, and this produces a really beautiful display. Now, not all of my orchids just get better and better every year, so don't think that I'm just have a sort of gifted touch with orchids. That's not true at all. But this is another orchid, and I've had this for a very long time. I have covered it in a previous video, so I'll put the reference on screen. But this has been in the same pot for so long, I can't remember, over 10 years. And it just hangs up fairly high up, so it gets plenty of light. It gets sprayed and then dunked once a week. And then each year I'm rewarded with this marvellous display of flowers. Last year, and I did mention this in one of my videos, I had really big problems with thrips. This year, I haven't got any thrips, or not that I've noticed yet. That may be because it's just not such a sort of thrip-heavy season. It may also be because I introduced some biological controls several weeks ago, so that if there were any thrips larvae around, they would hopefully be eaten before they developed. So this year, I'm happy to say I'm doing much better from the point of view of thrips. Apart from the orchids that I've been showing you, that look really beautiful at the moment, one of the reasons I wanted to make this video now was a sort of year-long experiment that I've been carrying out with this beautiful, sweetly scented Coelogyne nitida. A lot of people call it Coelogyne ochracea. Now, this is Limoniana, the sort of form with, instead of golden yellow marked flowers, it has sort of lemony yellow flowers. And at the moment in the greenhouse, as many of you will know, I'm really interested in orchids that have a beautiful scent, because in here the scent can collect and I can come in and go and sniff these marvellous range of incredibly varied perfumes that orchids offer. And this one has a really beautiful, sweet, lovely, quite sort of heavy scent, which sort of fills the greenhouse, especially on a sunny morning like this. So incredibly worthwhile. They're also good because they're not very large growing. The flowers last maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and they come with the beginning of the new growths. But the flowers are beautifully delicate. This is an orchid that I have had problems with. You can see this leaf is a bit brown at the tips, and I've noticed, at least in this country, a lot of people who grow this Coelogyne species, bearing in mind it comes from quite high altitudes in northeast India, Nepal, right the way over into Thailand. It grows in sort of, I think, largely evergreen forests, fairly low down on trees, sometimes on mossy and fern sort of colonized rocks. So it needs to be kept cool. In this greenhouse, it's really a little bit warm because I would call this an intermediate greenhouse. And previous years, I've always ended up with brown tips to the leaves, which is quite typical of the way that I've seen a lot of people's Coelogynes of this species ending up. So last year I did an experiment and put them down for the main sort of summer growing period on the ground where it's the coolest conditions possible. And I'm really pleased because this year the foliage looks very good. There are a few of these are the older leaves that grew the previous year, but if you look at the foliage that grew on last year's growth, it's really good, no brown tips. So I'm going to carry on this year, and when it's finished flowering, put it down on the ground and try and give it a much cooler growing period. Let's see what it's like. Well, you can't see much in the way of roots at the moment. They tend to sort of be sort of annual, and then once the flower spike has finished, after a bit of a rest, lots of new roots will start growing from the base of the new growths and then fill the pot with new roots. Right, well, I hope you found some of those plants interesting to see. That's what I wanted to show you today. Thank you ever so much to all my subscribers, and thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next one. And I must apologise in advance that the videos are rather sporadic these days.